Bar charts are a great way to visualize categorical data, especially when comparing quantities across different categories. Matplotlib makes it easy to create both vertical and horizontal bar charts with customizations for displaying complex data sets clearly. So let's start off by importing our Matplotlib library. Now, in our previous tutorial with line plots, we were using the plot method, and by default, Matplotlib plots line charts when we use this plot method. But changing to a bar chart is very simple. By switching from plot to bar method, we can display data as bars rather than lines. Let's start by creating some sample data. I have prepared two lists that we're going to be using. One of these lists are the ages, and the second list is going to be the salaries for each age. Now, to create a basic bar chart, we'll use the plt library from Matplotlib, and we'll use the bar method. And similarly to the plot method, we provide the x and y values. So for x, it's going to be ages, and for y, it's going to be dev salaries. Now we could also customize this slightly. So again, similarly to what we did in plot, we could choose our color, and here we could select, for example, blue, and we could set a label, and we could call it all developers. And we could set our X label, and we're going to put that as ages. And we can set our Y label, and that's going to be median salary, let's say in USD. We can add a title and call it median salary USD by age. And we could show our legend because we set the label, so we want to see the legend. And finally, let's take a look at our chart. And as we can see here, we have created multiple bar lines that represent the salary for each particular age. When comparing multiple datasets, such as salaries for different programming languages, we need to add additional bars. However, simply stacking additional bars will overlap them. So let me show you how exactly this would look like. Let's say we want to add salaries for Python and JavaScript. So I have two more lists here that I have created, and we can add them here. So Py salaries and JS salaries. And we will add these additional data points or bar lines by copying and pasting this line. And one's going to be for Py salaries, and one's going to be for JS salaries. And let's make this red, and let's make this green. And we could change this to Python. Actually, let's make Python green and this red. And change this to JavaScript. And when we run this, we can see that all this information is stacked right on top of the other. And so this is really difficult to see and also kind of hard to distinguish because we also have all developers bar lines that are technically right behind these bar lines that we just created. In order to fix this overlapping, we could use NumPy to offset the x-axis values. To do this, let's go back to our code up here, and we will add x indexes, which will be representing the positions of the bar lines. So let's create a variable called x indexes, and we will use NumPy for this. So we need to first also import NumPy as np. Then we will use np from NumPy, and we will use the arrange method. This will create an array based on the number of ages that we have in our ages list. So to get the number of ages that we have, we will use the length method and ages. So this will get the number of elements we have in this ages list, and then it will create an array of indexes starting from 0 and up until the number of ages minus 1. And this will be our indexes, or basically the positions of the bar lines. Now, this is only for each specific group or category here. We also want to add a width variable, and we're going to add an offset of, let's say, 0.25. And this will basically create an offset from the left and to the right of the bar chart. We'll just see that in a second. Next, we will change these ages to reflect the x indexes. So we'll use the x index, and for dev salaries, we'll do x index minus width. Then for pi salaries, we'll just leave it as x indexes, and for ages, x indexes plus width. And when we run this, we see that the bar lines indeed have shifted to the left and to the right, but we just need to adjust it just a slight little bit more, and we need to add the width parameter. So basically make these bar lines narrower. And to do that, we of course have a width parameter, and we will set that width to the same width that we have created. And let's just copy this, paste it here, paste it here, and let's run this one more time. And there we go. So now we have created the indexes, so basically the positions of each bar line, and then we added and subtracted the width, so basically moving the offset of each bar line by 0.25 to the left and 0.25 to the right. However, as you may have noticed, that the x-axis of numbers has slightly changed, which now reflects the indexes rather than the ages. And if we wanted to update this so that it reflects the ages correctly, we could do that using the ticks method. And to do that, we could go here and under x label add plt.xticks. And for the ticks, it's going to be the x indexes. So what we currently have right now on our x-axis, and we want to replace that with the ages so that it represents the ages rather than the indexes. Indexes. And when we run this, we misspelled it, of course, and we run that again. And now we have the ages instead of the indexes for our x-axis. In Matplotlib, you could use horizontal bar charts, which are effective for visualizing large datasets or when category names are long. We'll create a small mini example where we will try to see which programming language has the greatest popularity. To count programming language occurrences, Python's counter class is very useful. So to start off, we'll create a new example here, and we'll import the counter class, which is from a separate library called collections, and you import the counter. Now, let's say, for example, that we have data from a survey on which programming languages developers use. And for that, I have created this simple small list, which is going to represent our survey. Now, if we want to create a counter to count the languages within the list, we'll use the counter class to create a counter object, which will create basically kind of a dictionary of the values and the count of each value within the dictionary or within the list that we pass to it. So let's create a language counter, and this will be created using the counter class, and this will count languages from the languages list. This will create our language counter object. And if we want to take a look at the language counter, and when we run this, we can see we have our counter object, and it has counted each specific value that was in the list. Now we will create a list of the language names and a separate list of the counts for each language name. So let's remove this and let's create lang names, for example, and this will give us the language names, and we'll basically get the key values from the counter object. And to do that, we'll use the language counter dot keys, and to convert this into a list, we'll put this into this list method, and this will create our list. And now we want to get the count, so let's say we call this a popularity variable, and again list, and this time we'll get the language counter dot values. Now, to plot a horizontal bar chart, instead of using the bar method, we will use the barh method. So plt.barh and the x and y values. So lang names is going to be the names of our programming languages, and the popularity count. And let's add the x label and call it programming languages, and our y label and call it number of users, and of course title, let's call it popularity of programming languages. And last but not least, let's show our plot. And there we go. We have a horizontal plot with our 4 main categories, and of course, Python being the most popular programming language. If we want to arrange the bars from most to least popular, we just need to reverse the lists before plotting. So let's go back here and let's reverse these lists by using the reverse method. And the same for popularity. And when we run this again, we now have the most popular on top and down to the least popular. Become a member at AILearningHub.io and get access to personalized mentor guidance, early access to AI resources, help with AI projects, and a great learning community.